but I'm glad that people could come. This is a really rare opportunity for people in the State House to find out what happens in our communities, because we get reports about what's happening. Oh, I'm not following my own directions. The first thing I'm supposed to say to you is that this meeting is being recorded, and so each of us will speak into the microphone. I'm Pat Jelen, State Senator. I am the chair of a Senate Special Committee on opportunities offered under the new federal law, ESSA, or Every Student Succeeds Act. And so this is part of our work because the designation of low-performing schools and the models for turning those schools around were required as part of the Race to the Top funding and as part of the waiver that we got from the federal government to get out from NCL, No Child Left Behind. So those were both required by the federal government, and they are no longer required by the federal government. The federal government, under the new law, doesn't require 5 levels. It does require the state to designate the lowest performing 5% of Title I schools. Title I schools are almost all the schools in the Commonwealth, except for the very most wealthy ones. ESSA does not require getting rid of the principal. It does not require getting rid of all the asking teachers to all reapply, and it certainly doesn't require ignoring the recommendations of local stakeholders. So we have gotten presentations previously from the Department of Education and from MTA about the old process and the new process. And if people don't know about those, we are glad to share their written materials, and I think there are even recordings. The department's new plan is to have 8 tiers instead of 5 levels. And if you're interested in learning more about the effect of the labeling of districts with different levels, I encourage you to read the report from Mass Inc. about gateway cities. But today, we're going to hear from people on the ground in level 4 and 5 schools. Level 3, that is in Massachusetts law, it requires the designation of the lowest performing 20% based on test scores. But level 4 and 5 are chosen by the commissioner at his discretion from among those schools. There's a very high correlation of poverty with test scores and therefore with what the department calls performance. Levels 4 and 5 schools are more likely to have a high proportion of low income, minority, and ELL students. Every district with level 4 or 5 school, with level 4 schools spends less than the foundation budget requires on regular education teachers. The average district in Massachusetts spends more than that. I asked my granddaughter how should the commissioner decide if schools are low performing. She suggested he visit. This is the next best thing to a visit. So I want to be clear, not all schools are the same. There are success stories. You've heard about the Merkland in Lowell. You've heard about the Orchard Gardens in Boston. You've heard about others. But accounts like those you'll hear today are more common and becoming more common. Because of the new federal law, this doesn't have to happen. So we're going to hear from the experts, the people who work and study and have children in these schools. So we're going to start with Brighton High School. We have 2 teachers from Brighton High School just designated level 4. This year,
September.
this school year anyway. And the first is Martha Boissel, who is going to also come back on Thursday. She is a finalist for Massachusetts Teacher of the Year. And remember the...
First, I just would like to say thank you to all the students and faculty and support we have at Brighton High School. We have this whole row almost of people here to support us today, so thank you guys for coming. Just let me know if I need to move this closer. Okay. So my name is Martha Boisel, and I've been teaching for 13 years at Brighton High School. And throughout my years at Brighton, I've held various leadership positions, and I'm currently a lead teacher. I credit the teacher and leader I am today to many of the strong, dedicated colleagues that I have at Brighton High School. In just 2 short days, I'll be standing here again, sitting in the heart of the state's government with colleagues, students, and family in recognition for being a finalist for Massachusetts Teacher of the Year, an honor I'm proud to accept because it represents so much more than myself. Earlier this year, I also received the prestigious Shattuck Award, which was a special distinction since teachers aren't chosen for this very often. However, the day before the Shattuck Award dinner, I was informed in a meeting that my school was designated as a Level 4 school. Later, I received an excess letter dismissing me from my school along with 79 other teachers and staff members. Every single faculty member is treated with the same level of disrespect. By accessing everyone, the message is clear that we are the problem. Turnaround status is a major public education issue because when it's enacted, it poisons the school community and it makes great teachers leave the schools that need them the most. Though it is extremely important to assess school achievement and ensure we have highly qualified teachers in our schools, the laws that try to fix high-risk schools are actually damaging them, and the process of determining success hurts our most vulnerable students in our state. This is a complex issue. This issue is so much bigger than my school or the state. But here in Massachusetts, we are the leaders in education across our nation, and people look to us as a model, and I want to be proud of the Commonwealth I serve. I am not a politician or a reformer, I'm an educator, and even after a year where I've received professional accolades, I am demoralized. This year and the entire process has made me question my profession. And as a result of this process, many other award-winning and highly certified teachers chose not to return to my school. So I know that someday we will get this right, that we can provide a model for the nation that fairly assesses schools with high-need students and supports the achievement of those schools instead of punishing them. But that work must begin now, and it cannot wait any longer. Thank you.
Before I introduce Kristen Leathers, who is also from Brighton High School, I just wanted to recognize Representative Kevin Honan from Boston, or Alston, and Representative Denise Provo from Somerville. And we have staff here from Chairman Peisch of the Education Committee, and we have the chair, the Senate chair of the Education Committee, Sonia Chang Diaz, with supporting staff. And I think Senator Dorsina Forey also has staff here. There's probably others that I don't all recognize. But first of all, how many people here are teachers and students and parents? Great. I just like to know who I'm talking to. And I bet everybody here would like to know what. The next is Kristen Leathers, also has had the experience of being accessed at Brighton High School.
Thank you. I'm here today to explain how the current accountability system unfairly targets schools with high populations of English language learners and students with disabilities, and also to provide fair and simple policy solutions that I believe will mitigate the system's impact on these vulnerable populations. The data shows that the current accountability system ultimately ranks schools by the level of high-need students they serve. The higher the needs, the lower the rank. Over the last 8 years, the proportion of ELLs at Brighton High has more than doubled, a 224% increase. This is a substantially greater increase than was observed across all BPS, where the average proportion of ELLs rose 45%. In order to make adequate progress each year, schools are asked to compete against themselves to continually improve. But we are expected to compete against a prior school population that no longer exists. At the secondary level, a student who is new to the country with no English skills will find it difficult, if not impossible, to achieve proficiency during their high school career because there is only one chance to demonstrate mastery, and that's on the 10th grade MCAS test. Much research has been done on the topic of language acquisition, and it's clear that it takes students at least 7 years to reach academic proficiency in English. And new research is suggesting that it takes even longer. It is critical that students are given more time, in addition to being given a benchmark by which their growth can be measured. Why do we expect our already marginalized students to demonstrate a level of mastery that their English-speaking peers need 15 or more years to attain? My colleagues and I have been strong advocates to DESE on this issue as they've been revising the accountability guidelines in light of ESSA. We've attended their public meetings and filled out their public input surveys. However, we're being ignored. We provided what we believe are simple and fair solutions to these issues and others, but the finalized draft plan released by DESE does not address the issues around testing for ELLs and students with disabilities at all. These recommendations are attached to my written testimony and available for your review. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And we'll have an opportunity for questions, but I wanted everybody to have a chance to talk, and then you'll have a chance to ask questions into the microphone. And next we have a student from Excel High, which was also declared level 4 this year. This is Trinity Kelly. Would you like to, or you can have my mic.
Hi, my name is Trinity Kelly. I go to Excel. I'm 17 years old. I'm here today to kind of talk to you about my experience within Excel. I'm a junior, about to be a senior. I've been going to that school since freshman year. And I first-handedly have gotten to experience the changes that the school goes through when named a level 4. So we were named a level 4 this year, and you could immediately tell if you had been there the year before that the environment had completely been changed. Like growing up kind of in that school within these past few years, I knew my school as a place that was like a second home to me. I got to know my teachers very well. I was very close with everybody there. Something that really inspired me and kept me going to school and made me really love being there was my debate team. Our debate team was one of the top debate teams in the BDO. We won a lot of awards, and like everybody in the school was very proud of us and was very like kind of holding that space of the debate team of Excel. And something that I noticed that happened this year, which kind of demonstrates, and it's a good example of what happens when you're named a level 4, is that debate team now doesn't exist. What happened was that when my school got deemed a level 4, the meetings that we used to have, like for the debate team, would fall every Monday and every Wednesday, and then the staff huddles that had to happen to talk about like the level 4 process ended up falling on the same days. So the debate team eventually became non-existent. For me, that was like a big change in the environment. I felt like that was really my space to speak about just everything that I believed in. It really gave me a voice, and that was now destroyed. And I kind of want to speak about the issues with the level 4 itself. I remember the day this year when my teachers got fired. They actually ended up firing my teachers within the middle of a school day because they said they wanted to save shipping money. So they gave the teachers a pink slip within the middle of the school day and then asked them to go back and teach. And that was a really, really sad day for us all. And I kind of just want to like highlight the cycle that goes through with these schools that are named level 4. They take away resources from our schools because the previous year before, when the very big budget cuts were happening and the walkouts were happening, which I was a leader of the second walkout, my school specifically, Excel, lost a lot of money, and our special education program was completely cut, leaving students with an IEP with no help or resources at all. And this caused my school to like slowly deteriorate. And now that we're a level 4, apparently it's such an exciting time, according to Tommy Chang, we have just gotten back the money that we lost the last year. Including with inflation, we actually need more money to function regularly than we have right now. And I feel like this level 4 that they claim is supposed to help our schools, rebuild our schools, fix our schools, doesn't do anything at all because we actually just lost the money that we just got back the money that we lost the last year. And also my school, Southie High, used to be 3 schools, actually. So BGA was there and Monument High was there. BGA and Monument High got taken out of the school, and now Excel is next. Like, it leaves me as a senior next year feeling like I don't know anyone in my school anymore. Only 1/3 of the staff is returning, so that means that next year I have to go into a completely new school. I don't even, like, it has me worrying about who I'm going to go to for college recommendations if none of the teachers there know me. And yeah, it's just, like, I'm very concerned as a student there, and like the teachers from Brighton High were saying, these schools that have extremely high ELL, special needs, and people of color populations are targeted the most. My school has a very, very high ELL, especially level 1 ELL students, so who have just came here either the same year or the year before and are expected to get proficient or higher on an English MCAS, and that doesn't make any sense to me. Yeah, like, it's just, you can clearly tell that these schools are being targeted by their populations, and our entire school is being assessed based off of a test. And it doesn't make any sense to me because my peers and the people that I know there and my teachers have been the most brilliant people I've ever met in my life. So when we were deemed a level 4, I felt very discouraged. I feel that the students blame themselves, even though we all know that it's not our fault. And to me, that's a huge issue. So I kind of came here today to talk about just my experiences and as a student just show up and also question the reason why we let our schools even get to level 4 in the first place. When we were at level 3, I believe that we probably should have gotten more money, not money taken away from us last year. And I think that that's a main issue, is that politicians and the school board don't really pay attention to the schools until they are completely failing, to then say we're going to try and save your schools. It doesn't make any sense to me, so I just wanted to come here today to kind of share my experience with you all and shed light on it.
And next we have a teacher from the GRU school, which was declared level 4 in 2014, Emmanuel Farley.
So good afternoon. As was mentioned, my name is Emmanuel Fairley, and I am one of the 3rd grade teachers at the Henry GRU School in Hyde Park. And I just wanted to start off by saying that I love my school, but I speak for myself today as a second-year teacher. This is only my second year teaching, so the turnaround process that began in 2014, in some ways, I was a beneficiary of it because, unfortunately, that half of the school staff was let go, and that opened a space for me as a new teacher. But I speak for myself coming from the GRU, and I also want to name that the GRU has, if you look at our reports over the past 2 years, we've been very successful. The staff there works very hard to make sure that our students are getting the gains that is expected of them. But the reason I wanted to come and speak today is primarily because, as a new educator, as a brown male who is new to Boston as well, so kind of as an outsider looking in, coming into this district, and I'm originally from the South, coming into this district, there's a lot of talk around skin color and ethnicity and putting people in front of students that look like them. And I believe in that. When I think back to some of my most profound educators, the people who had the most impact on me, a lot of them were brown people who reflected me, and that is important to me. And I can even tell you, when I look at my students now, who are 8, and I had a little boy, we were doing these I am poems in class 2 days ago, and they're just poems where you talk about who you are as a person. And he walks up to me and he goes, he said, he's from Haiti, and he goes, can I say that I'm black? And I was like, yeah, you're black. And some people are probably like, why would a student ask that question? But quite honestly, at that age, they are wondering those things. Is it okay for me to talk about this kind of stuff? And I want to tell them, yes, it's very okay for you to talk, and you should be talking about it, and let's have a dialogue. And then we went on to talk about what is black and what is white. And fortunately, we have all of those colors in our class. And we talked about the complexion and what that actually means. And I actually held up a black marker, and I asked one of my students, are you this color? And he was like, no, I'm not. And I was like, are you black? And he was sitting there and was like, I don't really know. And I told him, I was like, there are people in the world that are this color, and they are absolutely beautiful. And don't you let anybody tell you differently. But you, sir, happen to be a couple of shades different than that, and that is also beautiful. And don't let anyone tell you differently. And then there's a young man in my class who happens to be white, and I had him hold up a piece of paper that was sitting next to him. I said, "What color is that?" And he said, "White." And I said, "Are you that color?" And he said, "Nope." And I was like, "You're absolutely right." So we, as a class, we talked about, well, what color is Michael? And we came to like a rosy peach kind of color. But the point I'm trying to make is that we're able to have those kinds of conversations, and because I do think my students feel more comfortable with a teacher who looks like them in front of them and who's willing to have those conversations. And it could also be that I'm a new teacher and I feel like I don't have anything to lose and I just want to have candid conversations with kids. All that to say, when I think about the turnaround process, and there are a lot of good things in terms of growth, and academics have come of it. I don't know personally how long I could sustain this kind of work. Trinity mentioned that her teachers, they have their staff huddle that kind of took away time from the debate team. At the GRU, we have 100 extra hours of professional development every year, in addition to the 36 that are required for traditional schools and Boston Public Schools. So imagine this year, every other Tuesday, after having taught for 6.5 hours, rigorous teaching, which come to my classroom. I invite all of you to come meet my kids. They are amazing people, and they can tell you everything there is to know about the world. After doing that, I'm expected to sit for 3 more hours after school and talk about, well, what did you do for the last 6.5 hours? And fortunately, my principal is really strategic, and we've made it so that the work is meaningful and we're not just wasting 3 hours. But it's still very hard. It's still very hard to be engaged and have a meaningful conversation about moving students and changing your school around after working all day. And not just working all day, but doing the kind of work that we do, which is a work of heart. Having the kinds of conversations that I have with my students is not just like, oh yeah, black and white, it's so simple. No, we also talk about slavery. Try explaining slavery to an 8-year-old. It's not an easy task. But my point is that I listen to these conversations and I listen to these themes, which is this consistent fear, this idea that as a student, my school is totally different. As an educator who is awarded, gets accolades out the yazoo, like I'm not valued. To me, as a novice teacher, that doesn't make me want to stay in this profession. And it makes me think about sustainability. And as much as I love my kids, which I do, I don't know what the next 3 to 5 years hold for me. Do I stay in a place where I'm not valued, where my students are not valued, or do I move on to something else?
And this is also a recent development, which is, oh, no, it isn't. Well, there is a recent development at the Mattahunt. Avian, can I say your name? Reg Mohan?
Yes.
Is a parent at the Mattahunt, which was declared level 4 in 2012, and this year was closed. Yes.
Good afternoon, everyone. How many people in this room have gone and graduated from a public schools? Can I see by raise of hand? Thank you very much. I'm so glad to see that. I also went to public school. I did not go to school in America. I am a recent immigrant. My school, the Mattahunt School, is full of recent immigrants. In my daughter's class, there are 24 kids, and they speak 32 different languages. This means that some of these kids already have almost mastered 2 other languages before they arrived at the Mattahunt School. What has happened at the Mattahunt School is my daughter has started to go to the school since in 2012. And since 2012, we've had 3 different principals. When my daughter was in 1st grade, she did not have a teacher. Her teacher quit. And what happened, they never were able to replace that teacher, so they had a rotation of Teach for America teachers who didn't know how to control a classroom, didn't have classroom management, and the curriculum never was followed through. In her second when she was in second grade, she had a what they call an old school teacher, which I loved. She did not try to teach my kid with YouTube videos or try to put them in front of a computer all day, and she retired. My daughter is in third grade now, and the school is going to be closed on June 30th based on test scores from 2012 to now until 2016 because the school has not showed any growth in the students. My daughter is taking the MCAS, took the MCAS for the first time this year. And we won't know what the results are for the MCAS for the Matterhorn School until the fall. And with that saying, knowing that the school is a level 4 school and the BPS knows that the school is going to be closed, the Matterhorn School has wraparound services from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. because many of the parents at the school work 4 jobs. And because they have a wraparound services that run from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m., the school is physically attached by a brand new catwalk that was built in 2010 to the community center, which allows kids to have swimming. The school Matterhorn School has a swim team, has had a swim team for the past 3 years, which is part of the actual curriculum. And the reason why the school has an actual curriculum that's geared towards swimming is because a lot of the kids go to Haiti every summer to be with their grandparents because their parents doesn't have anybody to watch them. And our students were actually drowning and not returning. And we said, we need to give them this skill that they needed. And there's a lot of research about African American and black students drowning over the summer. Even in Boston, there was a child who drowned at a BYCF camp in South Boston last year summer. So we added that to our program. It's not free. Parents send in $10 every month. So we subsidize funding at our school ourselves. The other thing that we're going to lose at the Matterhorn School with its closing is that our students don't really have anywhere to go. With the closing of the Matterhorn School, that's 627 kids who are being pushed out of a school that can hold up to 909 students. The Boston Public School closed 2 schools previously because of levels funding, school levels. The Roger Middle School was closed 2 years ago, and also the Elwood Greenwood was closed 2 years ago. There are 25 kids who are from the Elwood Greenwood at the Matterhorn School. And what happens when a school closes is, first of all, they already talked about is the morale at the school is completely gone. All the teachers have been fired. Just think about it. All the teachers, people who are qualified to teach our children, have been fired. That is left, now we're left with paraprofessionals and Teach for America, people who are learning to teach in front of our kids. Many of the Teach for America, these are people who are thinking, they feel passionate, they want to teach in our classroom, and when they are overwhelmed, they quit. So now, every Monday morning when I came to the Matterhorn School, because the school is set to be closed on June 30th, I would walk my daughter up to her classroom to see who's teaching my daughter. If there isn't an actual teacher in front of my daughter, I literally took my daughter with me to work because I know she wouldn't learn anything. She wouldn't learn anything for that day. And what my school, the Matterhorn, has turned into is a warehouse for the kids for a whole year. To warehouse children and not stimulate them and then still expect them to take the MCAS. Now the school is closing, and the same data that they said the school is closing because the school is failing and the children are not performing and not moving their PPI so that the school is in turnaround status, the state says, but the school is doing great at the K0 to first grade level. Now this data that they're using that the school is doing great from K0 to first grade level is my daughter's class. It is the largest third grade class in Boston. It's 135 kids who've never taken the MCAS, but they've taken the ANET and the DIBIT scores, and the building is crawling with testers. Every time when I come, there's someone either from some other company coming into the school testing our kids. How much time is spent on testing and not teaching the children? We are now almost a few days away from the Matterhorn school closing. Teachers have not been able to have parent-teachers conferences because they can't meet with parents because they don't have time. Parents don't know what reading level their children are at while they're being transferred to another school next year that is supposed to be at a higher grade level. What's also happening at the school is that kids don't know what's going to happen to them. Everything they've known is the Matterhorn school. And now you're saying, you're not good enough to be here. You have to be somewhere else. When they put school levels and you talk about English language learners and that the Boston is a gateway city, we have to remember that in 2010, there was an earthquake in Haiti. And the State Department granted temporary protective status to all the families who are currently going to the Matterhorn school. And also at the Matterhorn school, there is 2 villages from Puerto Rico. Puerto Ricans are American citizens. Their water was contaminated and were brought here by the state. And how we treat our communities by pushing against each other and dividing it based on language, it hurts the community. Because those who are from here say, my school is failing because of those outsiders. It's happening. And what's going to happen next year when those same kids go to another school? This is something that we all have to think about. Because for me, it's 2017, and we're still having the same conversations. And the same thing is still happening in our schools that was happening in the 1980s. Or the 1889 when Du Bois couldn't go to Harvard University and he had to go to Fisk. I mean, we have to think about these things. We want a better future for our kids. Every person who is in this room is a futurist, and you believe in a beautiful future for all of us. And we have to think about what education means and education justice means for our children. And we have to think about that now, not tomorrow, not next year, not when we change office, but it starts with us. Thank you.
Wow. Now we have Gina Sheehan from the Dearborn, which was declared Level 4 in 2013, who has done research on the accountability system in her free time.
Yeah, my name is Gina Sheehan. This is my second year teaching at Dearborn STEM Academy. And as the high school math teacher, I'm doing looking at the data. So if you guys could grab this or maybe share with people, because this is going to get very confusing pretty quickly if we don't have this in front of us.
Next time, we're going to have a projector.
Yeah.
I'd like to acknowledge that we're out of copies, so people should practice sharing. And I'd like to recognize Senator Jamie Eldridge, who's joined us.
So I'll start by saying that I could definitely share a countless number of stories very similar to people who are at this table right now, but I'm going to kind of walk you through how a school ends up in level 3, 4, or 5 status, and which is the bottom 20% of schools in the state of Massachusetts. So there are two terms that you need to know. One is Composite Performance Index, which is abbreviated CPI. On the MCAS exam, you have the option of scoring in the advanced category, proficient, needs improvement, or warning failing. Each of these scores is assigned a scaled score. So the CPI is the average of all of those scaled scores. The student growth percentile is something that is actually not public on the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education's website and how it's calculated. I was a math major in college. I cannot figure out, based on going back and forth from data over and over again, what this number actually represents. It's some sort of regression that you would need to run. R is a statistic program, something along those lines to figure this out. And it's taking the student and comparing the student to their previous scores on the MCAS exam and making predictions about where they should score in the future. So based off of high schools, I'm not quite sure elementary schools, but your composite performance index makes up 50% of your school percentile. Your college and career readiness makes up 25%, and your student growth percentile also makes up 25%. So we can already see that growth is not valued as much as the raw scores that students are achieving. So because I teach at the Dearborn, it's easier to walk through this with an example. So your scores follow you from 4 years past. So these are the percentiles for the 2016 school year that came out. So dating back now 2012 to 2015, taking a look at our students' raw score translated to a scaled score, then averaging all of those scaled scores is where you see the number 58.4 at the top of that chart. So that 58.4 compared to all other schools in the state of Massachusetts put us at the bottom 4%. That is weighted one time as compared to 2015, which would be at this time that I did this project, our most recent scores, which would be weighted up to 4 times. So this is a weighted average, if you guys remember back from high school. So I tallied up all of the total weights, which is 30, and our total points, which was 141. You also get points for the number of students that fall into the advanced category and the number of students that we have in the warning and failing category. And that's done for ELA, math, and science, again, dating back from 2012 to 2015. Our scores are tallied up, as you can see on the bottom, where we have a total weight of 90. 484 divided by 90 puts us at 5.4. That number, again, we're still not done with. That 5.4 is then matched up against all their scores in the state and transferred us to the bottom 3% of schools in the state based off of our CPI, which I like to call our achievement mean. So we are achieving as the bottom 3% of schools in the entire state. And keep in mind, this makes up half of our school percentile. Then on the next page, student growth percentage. Again, not quite sure how this is calculated, but the reason that science is not in there is because students don't take science MCAS every year like they do for ELA and math. So our student growth percentile was great. We were top 61% of schools in the state, which I think is awesome. But it's only weighted 25% of our total our total school percentile. And then our college and career readiness was put at the bottom 13%. This has to do with dropout rate and your cohort graduation rate. Your cohort follows you from the start of your freshman year, so even kids who transfer out of your school, that data still follows us for the rest of the 4 years and how that kid who started at the Dearborn is doing by the end. So that takes up 25%. And then on the final page, we would take our achievement percentile, which is 3%, weighted twice, 61% for our growth percentile, and then 13% for our college and career readiness percentile, which puts us at the bottom 16% of schools in the state, which automatically deems us a level 3 school. Level 4 and 5 are subcategories of level 3. The commissioner has deemed, so one man in the state of Massachusetts goes through all of the schools that are in the bottom 20% and says, I pick you for level 4 because you are underperforming, and I pick you for level 5 because I deem you chronically underperforming by whatever definition he thinks that is. So the Dearborn is a level 4 school. And I think that we have a lot of needs that already have been stated at this table, but basically we have not taken into account for our school percentile kids of poverty, students of ELL status. None of that is taken into consideration. That's taken into consideration for something else that I won't go into, which we also get a PPI score, but it doesn't matter because we are already deemed the bottom 20% of schools in the state. So you're taking a student's, just to summarize, we're taking a student's raw score, turning it into a scaled score, averaging the scaled scores, turning that into a number compared to all other schools in the state, which then puts us at a percentile that's averaged in with a lot of other stuff. If you have any more questions about this, I would be happy to answer that, but that is the best that I can do to explain our current Massachusetts state accountability system.
Wow. So transparent, we would call that transparent and giving you guidance about how to improve, sorry. What are you doing right? What are you doing wrong? Our last panelist is from Southbridge. Dave Williams teaches science teacher in Southbridge, which, although it has no level 4 or 5 schools, was this year declared a level 5 school. And
go figure.
What?
Go figure.
There are two. Well, there's two districts in Massachusetts which have no level 4 or 5 schools and yet have been declared level 4 or level 5. Mm-hmm. Southbridge now has a receiver, and Dave is going to tell us about that.
Yeah, the lovely story of receivership. Good afternoon. My name is Dave Williams. I'm president of the Southbridge Education Association, and thank you for the opportunity to speak here today. We who teach in Southbridge believe that the policies and regulation of level 4 and 5 schools are deeply flawed. Okay, we have seen firsthand how the so-called turnaround plans can be bad for teachers, bad for students, and especially bad for communities. In January 2016, the Department of Ed took control of the Southbridge Public Schools, categorizing our entire district as level 5, even though none of the schools were in level 4. Before it was given authority to place Southbridge Public Schools under the control of a receiver, DESE conducted a review of the district. The review determined that the problems in our school could all be traced back to a toxic political environment that resulted in a continual turnaround of superintendents and principals. I think we're up to about 11 superintendents in the last 5 years. The lack of steady leadership resulted in the needs of our students going unmet. Prior to the appointment of the receiver, several members of the Southbridge Education Association participated in a meeting, the local stakeholders group, and made recommendations to the commissioner on what the turnaround plan should look like. The educators in this group recommended providing more social and emotional learning for students, expanding access to free public preschool, and improving our services for English language learners, the students with special needs. Okay, many of our ideas were also included in the final stakeholder report. You wouldn't have known that by looking at the turnaround plan. Okay, the turnaround plan talked about many of the issues that we addressed at the local stakeholders meeting, but having watched how this has all unfolded over the years has been extremely disheartening. Dr. Heikensen was appointed receiver. She's been there less than 1 year. Her entire administrative staff that she had hired has now left. We are in disarray when it comes to leadership. The exact reason why we were put into receivership, we continue to be there. Okay, Heisinger left the Southbridge Public School earlier this month after less than a year, continuing the unstable leadership that we have experienced for the last 10 years. Her sudden departure caps what has been an extraordinary disappointing year for the students and educators of Southbridge. Heisinger's unexpected leave of absence and her inability to build a leadership team that could stick together for an entire school year speaks to the lack of preparedness that DESE put into putting Southbridge into receivership. Southbridge educators agreed with DESE that the school lacked vision, leadership, yet those that were brought in by DESE spent the year attacking veteran teachers with a flawed review process and using any legislative language they could find to gut the teacher's contract. I'll just leave it there. The DESE created chaotic and abusive atmosphere that was completely uninviting to any educators who would potentially want to work here and disrupt into our students' learning environment. Let's be clear, teachers were never the reason why Southbridge was declared underperforming. Unfortunately, DESE used the same cookie-cutter plan that we have seen in Lawrence and Holyoke, the state's two other districts in receivership, and in all three cases, punished teachers. The plan continues to drive our best educators out to other districts. Southbridge educators are willing to work with DESE to improve the district. What we cannot accept is DESE's continued blaming of teachers for the failing of past administrations. Our students deserve to be taught by full-time, highly qualified teachers who care about them. The turnover in staff created by DESE's policy has left our students in the hands of an alarmingly high number of substitute teachers. Under DESE's current policy, students come to school with a feeling of uncertainty, and it interferes with their inability to focus on academics. Parents have witnessed this in their children, and many have opted to place their children in other districts. Rather than stabilize the district, DESE's actions have had an opposite effect. All students deserve a stable, welcoming environment that does not leave them feeling abandoned. Forcing parents to find another school and driving dedicated teachers out of the district is not in the best interest of the students of our community. There are just 5 public schools in Southbridge, 1 high school, 1 middle school, and 3 elementary school. It is absolutely absurd that DESE is unable to find the support and the right people to carry out an authentic plan that benefits our students. Southbridge educators are dedicated to the students of Southbridge, and we would like DESE to acknowledge our investment in our students and respect our voices as we work to improve the district. Thank you very much.
Well, I'd like to thank all of the panelists here, and I'd like to thank those of you who have come to listen. I just want to reiterate that the purpose of our gathering is to listen to stories from people in the field, compare them with data, which we now have perhaps more understanding of how it's generated, and then think about, are there better ways to meet the needs of students and to preserve and to enhance our teaching force. So now that we have opportunities under the new federal law, can we do a better job of identifying schools that need help and diagnosing them better and providing better remedies that won't disrupt education but will improve it? So that's my little ending. I would like to work with people here in the State House and in the state to develop a plan that would really meet students' needs and teachers' needs and parents' needs and communities' needs. But first, do you have questions? We have a few more minutes that we could have, so our panelists, I think, have raised a lot of questions. Sure. Oh, sorry. Oh, thank you.
Oh, you want to take this one?
We'll pass that around up here when you ask the question.
Hi, so I'm Dan Murphy with AFT Massachusetts. I've worked with Senator Jalen before and worked closely with my colleagues at the MTA and at the Boston Teachers Union. And I just kind of wanted to offer a few thoughts and reflections. I mean, it's really upsetting to hear these stories. And Gina, your presentation, borders on the comical, but that's sad in its own way. The state has created a system that is punitive, demoralizing, and that, in my opinion, is intellectually bankrupt and morally bankrupt. But I do think there's a way out of this problem. If DESE would listen to us, and if policymakers would listen to us. So Senator Jalen is correct. The new federal law requires that 5% of schools be designated as, quote, comprehensive support and intervention schools. And those schools have to have a plan, and then they become eligible for resources. What's wrong with that? That's great. Schools with the highest needs should get support and resources. But the way out of this is that you can do all of that. You can do all of that without the punitive parts. You don't need the label underperforming or failing or level 4. And you don't need all the punitive teacher blaming and shaming that comes with that. That is at the discretion of our state. That's at the discretion of DESE, and some of it is also governed by state law, but not federal, not federal. So we can create a rational system that is not punitive, that's supportive, and tailored to the needs, the specific needs of the school. Like your point about go visit the school, right? Find out what's happening, and do not assume that bad teachers are to blame, or union contracts, or school governance, or whatnot. Find out what the root causes are, and it's probably things like a large exploding English language learner population, or students with great challenges, and then come up with a plan that's tailored to that it is about support and tailored to the needs of the school. That's our way out of this, and AFT Massachusetts is very excited to work with you, Senator, and your colleagues to find some common sense solutions. Thank you.
Well, it's not going to be recorded, but I'm just going to say I was intimidated by Avian's suggestion that we need to work. I was inspired by Avian's, I said intimidated. I'm inspired by Avian's urgency, and I agree with her. We are not going to file a bill tomorrow, and we are not going to pass a bill tomorrow. But I hope that, and I will recognize that, Senator Brady is here from Brockton, who is going to save us all, I believe. And I did want to recognize that although Senator Chang Diaz had to leave, Nathaniel Shea has been here that entire time, who is her chief of staff. I do hope that we can find some agreement on ways that we can improve schools without hurting children. So, are there, yes?
Yeah, hi, I'm Monty Neal. I'm with Fair Test. I've known many of these young people here, including Trinity, and you are marvelous. And these young folks came to support her. You should have heard them at the Boston City Council last week, because there's a budget crisis in Boston, and they're attacking the schools, as many of our people have talked about, which is part, of course, of the state problem, where we are underfunding our schools by perhaps $2 billion every year. So when we wonder why there aren't the programs to help schools overwhelmingly full of English language learners well enough, that's one reason. But it's not just that, of course. It's the tests themselves, which are bad measures of our schools. But the federal law now says that the combination of achievement scores, growth scores, English language learner scores on the English language acquisition test, and graduation rates together have to be a substantial majority of the weight given to a school, but it's going to count for almost everything in Massachusetts, and the other factors which community groups have really fought, such as student discipline and expulsion and suspension rates, not really paid attention. School climate, not really paid attention to. All kinds of things that people around the country, other states are using more of, Massachusetts isn't using them. So yeah, there's ways of looking at schools. The growth should count more. I mean, think about it. 61 percentile rank for English language learners on the MCAS test when they're still learning the language, they're still making progress, but it's not enough to save a school. Isn't the point to learn? Not to be blamed because you came from another country? So yeah, the department simply does not want to change this. It will not so far, and the Board of Ed will not listen to the students, the parents, the teachers, the community. They ignore us. We hope the legislature will listen.
Where's Vicki? Can you give us, or Monty, you pass it on.
Overall, I see the panel here has just been amazing. We heard all their voices talking about a problem that's happening in almost every school system around America, which is the problem of level 4. And hearing my friends' schools being basically their budgets being cut, them having fears of it shutting down, and hearing them getting just slowly, as Trinity said, their community became disheartened from it. Now, my question was that you guys all have seemed to take action against this problem. So do you honestly think that the politicians care every time you go talk to them? And this is for all panel speakers.
I can answer that question. The Matterhorn school, when they decided to close the school, most of the politicians had agreed that the school should be closed and should become an early childhood center because it would better serve the community. And I reached out to Linda Dorsina-Forey, and she changed her mind and she supported us. Also, Andrea Campbell also changed her mind after coming to the actual school and meeting the actual children that are going to be displaced and said, oh my gosh, they're smart. They speak more than one language. Look at their handwriting. They know cursive, and they're not being taught cursive at school. So, yes, talking to your politician does matter.
I would say, to answer Kathleen's question, I work with BYOP, Boston Youth Organizing Project, and also I am the coordinator of Young Coalition, which the young people over here also work with. And we show up to a lot of budget hearing meetings. We try and talk to the politicians as much as we can, but it is disheartening when we go and testify at these hearings and still the budget gets cut every single year. It is very disheartening, and I would say I'm not too sure how to answer that question. I think it's very important that we talk to our politicians because at the end of the day, we do need them to understand where we're coming from, and they do need to be educated on these issues and vote in our favor. But at the same time, I think the most important thing is talking to your community, talking to the teachers, your parents, your friends, everybody. I wish that I was just asking if Emmanuel had left because I wanted to tell him that, he was talking about how he isn't sure if, what his future holds, if this is right for him, if he wants to teach anymore, seeing how the teachers are not valued, the students are not valued. But I wanted to tell him that, yes, you should continue teaching because the people that do value are the students. The students need teachers like him. And I'd say that is what truly matters is just talking to your communities because, once you build that alliance and that mutual understanding of what is going on, like my school, I'd say a lot of the young people in my school have really, really understood what is going on and have begun to realize that, no, it's not our fault that we're a level 4. And now we need to, talk to our teachers and kind of form an alliance with them and learn how to battle this together because, yes, talking to our politicians is important, but we can't do that unless everybody in the community is collectively educated on the same level.
So I think this has been really helpful. I'm sorry that not more of my colleagues were able to be here and listen, but I think you can see how hearing stories really can help change people's opinions rather than just looking at pages of numbers or hearing about CPI and PPI and things that people believe. Let me just say, I'm going to say something about politicians, and I'm one. We have a lot of things to think about. We are working on a lot of issues. You have to get our attention. The Globe is not going to do it. The Herald is not going to do it. You have to find a way to tell your story to me and my colleagues. That's what's going to make a difference. Unfortunately, Level 4 schools, Level 5 schools are clustered in a very few communities. Boston and Springfield have most of the Level 4 and 5 schools. And then comes, I forgot, it's Lawrence and Holyoke. It's the poorest districts in the state. So it's not everybody. Not everybody in here knows anything about this, and you won't know them unless you live in a different district. But at least getting the Boston reps and senators to understand, getting the Springfield reps and senators to understand what's happening in their communities, I think that's really important. So those of you who have come and I want to just also say, here's what gives me hope. The young teachers who are committing to this very difficult profession, and the young people coming out of the Boston Public Schools, not just Trinity, but I've met students from Brighton High School who were part of Generation Citizen, making 2 years in a row, not in a row, but 2 years, giving the final presentation at Generation Citizen. And both times about how great an education they were getting and how damaging the accountability system and the charter schools have been to them personally and their colleagues. We need to have their faces in more public places, and I want to thank them. So thank you all for coming. Stay in touch. Let me know what your thoughts are in the fall. I hope to call my colleagues together and see if we can, maybe July. Sorry, I'm going to remember. We will be very soon trying to put together something that we can present to people so they will think about these issues and maybe take action. So thank you for being part of this, and stay in touch.
Thank you for having me.
So nice to meet you. Congratulations.
Nice to meet you.
Oh, my God.